First story. OP exposed her future BIL's shady past to her entire family after he confided in her during a vulnerable moment. Reddit went into pure rampage mode. I'm 37, and I come from a close-knit family. I have two younger siblings, 28M and 27F, and my sister recently got engaged to FBIL 23M after dating him for around a year. We all know him well, and I have always gotten along with him. He comes from a rough background, but he has always been very polite and charming. He doesn't talk about his own family or about his upbringing. My sister said it's a painful topic for him, so no one ever pushed. There was recently a family event that FBIL attended. He was quiet during the day. He is normally high energy and sociable, then disappeared for a while. When I went outside for some fresh air, I bumped into him. He was emotional and said it was a hard day for him due to negative associations. He ended up offloading some quite shocking things from his past, including that he has a history of very serious drug use, including needles, and that he has done sex work and PN men and women. I felt for him at the time because he was so upset, literally crying on my shoulder. But afterwards I felt more and more uncomfortable. I still feel bad for him since he clearly regrets it. But it's very shocking to find out he has that kind of history. And it does make me feel differently about him. Obviously, I told my husband what FBIL told me because I didn't feel comfortable keeping it to myself. I also told my sister because I didn't know how honest he had been with her, and it could impact her decision to marry him. She was angry and said she was fully aware, and that doesn't make her think less of him. I know others might disagree, but I decided if my sister and FBIL weren't going to bring it up, then it was my responsibility to make sure my family had the information they needed to make an informed choice about what kind of relationship they have with him. My parents agreed that it was the right thing to do and were grateful. My brother said he could see my point, but didn't think it was my responsibility to share that information. My brother's wife thought I was out of line. When my sister found out I told our family about FBIL's sketchy past, she was very angry. She is now refusing to speak to me altogether because apparently this has affected FBIL quite badly. They are no longer engaged because he thinks he's not good enough for her, and no one in my family has seen him since all of this happened. Obviously, that wasn't my intention, and no one said he isn't good enough. I think it's naive to pretend that you see someone exactly the same way after finding out they're an addict. Whether you like it or not, there are risks that come with that lifestyle, and relapses are common. I'm concerned that my sister will get hurt, and I don't think it's unreasonable for my family to have access to the same information I do, especially when they're inviting him to their homes, and there are children around, etc. Ada for informing my family about FBIL's background. Note: Reddit was in full rage mode against OP. I've included some comments, but feel free to skip them. Notable comments: you suck. Another Redditor replies, hi. Hijacking the top comment, sorry, just to say. OP, if you have a shred of decency or humanity left in your heart, send this post to your sister so she can share it with her ex, and he can see that he is not the problem, that there are many people that support him, and that what you did to him was not okay, and he shouldn't blame himself. Maybe they can still salvage what you so cold-heartedly destroyed. I do hope you can own up to your actions and do better. Ida. BIL's story is for him to tell, not you. They didn't bring it up for a reason. Your sister has every right to be angry at you. He confided in you. And what did you do in return? Told everyone, so they could make an informed decision. Would you like someone to tell your parents your secrets without your permission? No. Ida. Maybe you didn't realize because you're so blinded by your own ego. But he's 23. That would indicate that he got started on drugs and sex work at a younger, much more vulnerable age. Most 18-year-olds aren't aspiring to be addicts or adult stars. Do you know anything about his financial or living situations at that time? Do you have any idea how he ended up in that situation? Can you even imagine the shame and guilt he must feel without the added pressure of knowing how harshly you and your family judge him? Next time, if there even is a next time that someone trusts you with personal information, try compassion over your holier-than-thou approach, and you might find that people with pasts they're ashamed of can be some of the greatest people you ever meet. Here is the list of reasons why Ida is truly spectacular. 1. You massively betrayed the trust of someone who opened up to you about their trauma. 2. You are judgmental of sex workers and people who have suffered from and overcome the disease of addiction. 3. You described said disease as a lifestyle. 4. The fact that you felt the need to clarify men and women indicates a level of homophobia. 5. You're treating your adult sister like a child who can't make her own decisions. 6. You don't have the self-awareness or emotional intelligence to realize any of this. Someone adds. 7. Given his age, and the details the OP has stated about the timeline. He was likely a teenager when these things were happening. And while I would find this lack of empathy for anyone disturbing, it's especially horrible to consider that he was likely a teenager when he was getting involved in these things. A fact that ought to evoke some level of compassion. It completely. You had someone in a vulnerable position tell you something in confidence only to turn around, judge them, and then make sure everyone else had the same opportunity to pass judgment themselves. Your sister told you she knew, and that's where it should have stopped. It's not your place to disclose someone's personal life to people who aren't already privy to said information. To think you could possibly not be taught is so jaded. It's sick. I hope you enjoyed the relationship you had with your sister, because it's been destroyed now because of your holier-than-thou sense of judgment. OP, are you going to defend yourself at all? Explain or add some additional information. OP replies, I'm reading the comments. I assume if I try to defend myself, it won't be received very well. And I don't think anyone has asked for further information, so I'm not sure what I would add. Follow-up question. Does it really matter though? This is a throwaway account. I mean, if you're really asking if you are are you not trying to really figure it out? OP is still oblivious. Fair enough. I'm not saying it matters if people are unpleasant to me, but it doesn't seem as though anyone is interested in considering my side. Maybe it's naive, but I expected more balance in the responses. I find it hard to imagine none of these commenters would have any issue with a future family member being a recent Roman 4 heroin user and adult performer. I'm not saying he's an evil person or that he doesn't deserve respect, but his lifestyle does not have pleasant connotations for many reasons. Yes, I feel bad for hurting him and for upsetting my sister. I would have found it extremely difficult to just pretend I didn't know, and it changed how I view him. Another Redditor replies, what side? You were told something deeply personal and embarrassing for your BIL because he trusted you. How did you reward that trust? By asking your sister, and then keeping your mouth shut, as it's not your information to share. No, you told everyone, because you wanted them to know your sister made a bad choice, and they should decide what kind of relationship they should have with him. You blew up his support network, and ruined his chances of being happy with your sister, and now they've broken up. I hope you're satisfied. Your side isn't looking good enough to get a bunch of people on your side like you hoped. OP. I would be extremely surprised if the breakup is permanent. And if it is, then perhaps the relationship wasn't going to work out anyway. I think he broke off the engagement because he was embarrassed and upset in the moment. And I know it's my fault he felt that way. However, I strongly expect he will change his mind when he calms down. In the same thread, someone calls out OP for playing the victim card. Instead of playing victim, you should try to take something away from the rampant disgust you've generated towards yourself. Consider the fact that we only have your narrative to work with, and even your own narrative, not combined with anybody else's, is generating this type of disgust towards your thought process and decision-making. You should be learning from this if you ever want an iota of a chance of patching things up with your sister, instead of expecting us to empathize with your callousness here. Being concerned is one thing. Going around and talking about a past that wasn't your place to talk about so that others could pass judgment is another. Your concerns should have been aired out with the person who was going to marry him instead of destroying every ounce of that man's self-esteem and perspective of him in the eyes of your family. If you're saying that he's not an evil person and does in fact deserve respect, then why did you go around treating him with utter disrespect? Your talk and your actions do not line up. Nobody was asking you to pretend you didn't know. Why would he have told you anything if the expectation was to pretend you didn't know? It is common sense to not go around and spread the word about something you were told in a one-on-one conversation that is sensitive personal information about another person. You had already told your husband. You went to talk to your sister about it. But you weren't satisfied until you could generate a response from others that was in accordance to your own. That is what happened. You weren't satisfied. Your husband didn't react in disgust. Your sister was already aware of and still loved this man, and she wanted to be with him for a long-term commitment. But that wasn't satisfactory to you because she was angry with you rather than gasping in shock and horror over this information. You wanted to tell enough people until you could tip the scales in your favor in regards to how your perception of this man had changed after he made the terrible error of telling you absolutely anything about himself. Quite frankly, I don't know how you can defend yourself after this awful behavior towards another person. Recovered addicts shouldn't be treated like they're always on the verge of relapse. People who went into SW because they came from a background rife with adversity shouldn't be treated like they're beneath you. But that's exactly how you treated him after he shared about his past during a vulnerable moment. You have some massive character flaws that are preventing you from seeing just how badly you hurt two people here. If I could have any sway over the situation here, it would be getting you into intensive therapy ASAP. so you can start actually developing some proper empathy and social skills. Ida in a massive way. Calling you Ta doesn't begin to describe it. There is no defense for what you did. If it had started and stopped with discussions with your husband and sister, I could understand that. But what you did was massively out of line. I am an ex-needle drug user, and I hate people who penalize others for past mistakes. This is exactly why I keep this SHT secret in my everyday life. Some people do know, unfortunately, and no matter how much you change or how long you have been clean, you will always be a druggie. I'm 5+ years clean and have a wife and children. I own my own home and make 6+ figures. I do everything in my power to give my family a good life. Some of the reason is that I have guilt because I was using drugs after my first child was born, and I was not around as much as I could and should because I was doing drugs. My main reason for staying clean is for my children and wife, because I never want to lose them. I will not fail them again. My second reason is that I stay clean. I do it because I can't stand proving judgmental losers like yourself correct. You know how I know you're a loser? It's because you're a hater, and the only people who have time to hate are losers. The majority of us who are winning don't have time to hate on others, as we spend our time focusing on making ourselves better. I used to have so many people like you in my life. You're a heroin addict, you're a bad person, etc. Guess what? We are still out here clean and having a great life. Most of those people hating on me are in the same position they were 5 years ago. I am not. Major Ida. Update post. Posted on OP Zone. Now deleted account. Post recovered via undid. Since the comments on my post are locked, I'm still receiving messages mainly telling me to kill myself. I don't know if this qualifies as an update, but I want to make it clear that I know I have messed up. I was convinced my intentions were good, but I acted based on judgment and didn't give enough thought to the reality of BIL's situation. I stand by talking to my sister about it, but I should have left it at that. Many commenters said they hoped my sister disowned me. To clarify the current situation, she does not want to speak to me and does not accept my apology. She has very clearly stated, "I will never forgive you." I doubt anyone will feel any sympathy for me, but the damage this has done is devastating. Although I'm the person she is most angry with, she has distanced herself from the whole family. The person she has communicated with most is my brother, but due to how things played out, she holds everyone responsible to some degree. I found out that BIL broke off their engagement via my brother, but he doesn't have much more information than that. He said it sounds like my sister and BIL are still in regular contact, and possibly still together, just not engaged. Many people pointed out my ignorance of BIL's background, which is true, and my sister also made this point the last time she spoke to me. She said my actions affected him very badly. I truly don't think that means he has relapsed or harmed himself like people suggested, because I think if that were true, she would have told me out of anger. She said several things with the clear intention of twisting the knife, not to say it wasn't true, but she was lashing out. Obviously, I'm ashamed that I hurt him. I truly, sincerely hope my actions haven't harmed him in a lasting way. Contrary to what many people assumed, I don't hate him or see him as less. I like him very much, and I wish I had thought things through much more before I opened my mouth. Everyone in the family likes him. BIL has declined to speak to me or anyone else in the family, which I understand. I don't know if my sister will pass on an apology. I don't think it would be appropriate to find other means of contacting him if he doesn't want to hear from me. That's it, I suppose. Hopefully this clears up how things stand currently. I'm not responding to any abusive messages. Notable comments. OP, this utterly drips with self-absorption as a woe is you, instead of the impact you've caused by abusing the trust of someone who confided a very personal past to you. You need to seriously consider your actions and reassess the entitlement you seem to bear. Your sister is or was happy. She did not express concerns for her safety, and you had no right to share business that isn't yours with anyone else. I'm betting you don't have many friends if you are able to treat family or prospective family like this. Leave your sister and BIL alone, and if they want to talk, they will reach out. But bugging them to forgive you isn't going to help matters. Learn a valuable lesson from this, and keep other people's businesses out of your mouth. In one of your comments, you said it changed how you see him, but now you want to say you don't hate him or see him as lesser. I find that hard to believe. And yes, you have done lasting damage to him. You confirmed his fears that his past means he does not deserve to be loved and accepted for the man he is now, despite all the work he's done to overcome his addiction. I hope he has a good therapist. I doubt anyone will feel any sympathy for me, but the damage this has done is devastating. Well, poor you. You completely overstepped for literally no reason other than wanting to be able to tell your family about his past, which was none of your business to begin with. but he trusted you enough to be honest about. You really do not deserve sympathy, and saying it has been devastating for you when you single-handedly blew up an engagement, vilified your FBIL, and betrayed your sister just to gossip to your family about what you chose to call the FBIL's lifestyle is honestly laughable. Contrary to what many people assumed, I don't hate him or see him as lesser. Except you literally do. You referred to his most likely abusive childhood, adolescence, and subsequent disease as a lifestyle. That's effing disgusting. If you had the capacity to begin to think of anyone other than yourself and your family's extreme privileges, as you referenced in your other post, you never would have done that. If you didn't think of him as lesser, you would have spoken to your sister to make sure she was aware if you were afraid of her, making sure she knew his past before marriage. Your family had no right to know. You had no right to know either. He chose to trust you, and you reinforced what has probably been a lifelong battle for him about why he shouldn't trust anyone. Now he feels judged and looked down upon by what was supposed to become his family. You have done irreparable damage to him and your sister, whether they end up getting married or not. That was you. That was the decision you made. I genuinely hope you can understand this, because there's literally nothing you can do to take it back or fix what you broke just because you felt like doing it. Let's be real. You may not hate him, but you do see him as lesser. You even admitted that you felt different about him after he told you. I'm also curious about how the parents handled the situation, given that they agreed with your actions. Hearing that, I would assume they also saw him as lesser and/or had tension with your sister regarding him. What were your intentions in telling your sister, then everyone? Why do you claim you had to take responsibility to make sure my family had the information they needed to make an informed choice about what kind of relationship they have with him? From what you wrote, it sounded like you did not want him in your family. That's not okay, and I think you need to seriously address not only how you treat people, but how you think about them too, as that affects how we interact with people. What exactly did your sister say that led you to use the terms twisting the knife and lashing out? Both of those imply that you do not see the very real damage that you caused. The first implies you are being unfairly treated, and the second implies that you see what happened wasn't that serious, and both imply that what your sister said to you was unnecessarily cruel, uncalled for, only intended to cause pain, and that you do not deserve the pain from what she said. OP replies, still lacking an ounce of self-awareness, and still playing victim. What I mean is that some of the things she said were very emotional, that he had finally started to feel accepted, that he trusted me with something he very rarely opens up about, and that he saw me as family. I'm not saying what I did wasn't serious, but I do think she is trying to hurt me. I understand why she's angry. Another Redditor replies, no, she's not trying to hurt you. She's trying to make you realize how badly you messed up, how badly you hurt him. He confided in you, and you broke that trust immensely. You made him feel unworthy and dirty when your sister did not see him that way. He doesn't have a family and felt that yours was becoming his, but instead you showed him just how lowly you think he is. You did a terrible thing, and instead of explaining yourself, you should be doing everything you can to make up for it. Because your explanation means nothing to them right now. This post is extremely hollow and defensive. Your actions were not only incredibly cruel, as many others have already told you, but your repeated assertion that you thought you were doing the right thing betrays your prejudices. You seem to assess the worth of other human beings based on how you view the morality of their past actions, rather than how they treat others in the present. Your repellent treatment of your sister's partner speaks far more about you as an individual than it does him. I sincerely wish him and your sister well, and hope you not only feel remorse because the fallout to yourself has been devastating, but that you begin to understand why your actions were so abhorrent. So you aren't ashamed. You're just upset that your sister probably hates you now. You don't feel you did anything wrong, but you did. You may have sent him into a relapse, and if you did, I'm almost certain your sister wouldn't tell you. Why? Because you can't be trusted not to say, I told you so. You can't be trusted not to tell the rest of your family, because if he did relapse, it would be because you started his downward spiral, which I'm sure you'd take no responsibility for, just like you aren't now. You ruined her relationship, and the relationship you could have had with someone who thought they truly could trust you as his soon-to-be family. You think she is trying to hurt you, but really she's just letting you know what you caused, and that what you did was to a worse extent than you thought it was. You aren't the victim here. You are the perpetrator. Even if you won't admit it, all your comments and posts show how self-absorbed you are in a situation that has nothing to do with you. Telling your sister would have been fine, but for you to continue to justify your actions after leaving a bleeding gash in that man's back is unbearably disgusting. Not to mention that I'm sure you see this as a tantrum, or at the very least, an overreaction to you crumbling any sort of trust he could have had in you or your family. That's very telling that an almost 40-year-old woman thought it was in her best interest to blow up someone at such a young age and not expect there to be actual repercussions. If I were you, I'd stop trying to make amends and start looking into your own issues as a person. I truly, sincerely hope my actions haven't harmed him in a lasting way. Contrary to what many people assumed, I don't hate him or see him as less. I like him very much. Don't bloody lie. You said in your previous post that your BIL's past was, in your view, shady. You were uncomfortable because of his history, and that made you feel differently about him. You suspected him of having hidden this from your sister, and thought your sister would not want to associate with him if she knew. Your family needed to know so they could make an informed choice about what kind of relationship they have with him, very clearly implying that you thought they'd want to distance themselves due to his past and wanted to do that yourself. In your mind, knowledge of one being a former addict changes how people view one. That lifestyle, being a former addict, brings risks, and relapses are common. You're concerned that your sister will get hurt for no reason aside from the BIL being a former addict. You think people should know if someone's a former addict because they might invite them to their homes and let them be around their children, meaning you think former addicts might steal things or harm kids. You are obviously judgmental as hell and 1% view people who have at some point struggled with addiction as lesser, risky people. Your BIL trusted you and sought support by revealing something very private and painful, which is a sign of trust. You repaid that by, essentially, betraying his trust and warning your family to distance themselves. Because that sort of people, or people who ever lived that lifestyle, are, in your view, forever dangerous, unpredictable, dishonest thieves that little children must be shielded from. That was your real intention, whether you admit it or not. You thought your family would want to, and ought to, distance themselves from him, because you think having gone through difficult things makes him lesser than the rest of you so decent, unmarred, judgmental, high-horsed people. You wanted your family to know so they could push him out. You thought he'd lied to your sister for sure, because your sister surely wouldn't have gotten engaged with that sort of person if she'd known. And when she wasn't shocked enough, you blabbed to your whole family so that they at least could stop inviting him to gasp. Your homes where your precious children play, so you wouldn't have people from that lifestyle in your sphere. And you have the goddamn nerve to say you don't see him as less. That you're ashamed that you hurt him. That you, truly, sincerely, hope you didn't cause lasting harm when you intentionally wanted to permanently change the way your family sees him so they wouldn't invite him to their homes. That you were convinced your intentions were good. That is, you wanted to shield your lofty family from unknowingly mingling with undesirable riffraff. God forbid people try to get over their past trauma and build themselves up. No, mistakes and abuse taint people forever, right? Well, you got exactly what you wanted. You stabbed him in the back and let him understand that indeed, having gone through trauma and abuse makes decent people not want to know him and view associating with him as a security risk, and he has distanced himself out of shame. Your family is safe. Congratulations. Your sister, though, might choose to also distance herself from him. But hey, tearing the family apart is a small price to pay for not having filthy former addicts in your home and influencing your children, right? I'm sure your parents, too, are still grateful. You really are despicable. Trying to gain sympathy because your sister said mean things like, to twist the knife, Jesus. Note. Marking this as inconclusive as we don't know what happened to the relationship between OP's sister and her now ex-fiancé. Given the response OP had, it's no surprise she deleted her account. I doubt we'll ever see a proper conclusion to this story. I do hope OP's sister and her partner are able to overcome the damage OP has caused. Second story. OP demands paternity test as ex-wife seeks child support. Mother takes ex's side. I 32M was married to my ex-wife, Jane 30F, for 5 years. Our marriage ended after I discovered she had been cheating on me for about a year with multiple men. She got pregnant and confessed that she didn't know if the baby was mine or her affair partner. A couple of months after the divorce, I tried to reach out to her to see if the baby was mine but couldn't, and I learned through a friend that she and her new partner had left the country. That was 2 years ago, and I thought that was that. Recently, Jane reached out to my mother, claiming that her kid is mine and in need of financial help. Jane told my mother that her partner left her when he found out the kid was not his. Now, for context, my mother has been desperate for grandkids, especially since my older brother is gay and childless, and I've been single since the divorce. She's been relentless in pressuring me to help out Jane. However, I have my doubts, given her infidelity. I find it hard to trust her claims without concrete evidence. So I've insisted on a paternity test before committing to any financial or emotional support. If the child is indeed mine, I'll gladly step up and fulfill my responsibilities as a father. but I refuse to do so without proper legal documentation. My mother and Jane are both vehemently against the idea of involving lawyers or going through the legal process. They insist that the child is mine based on similar resemblances like having blue eyes, which I have, but Jane has blue eyes as well. This issue came to light when my mother posted a picture on Facebook of her and the kid titled my grandson. Now family members and some friends know about this issue and are contacting me. When I tell them I don't know if the kid is mine and want to do a paternity test, they are calling me selfish and irresponsible. My family members are saying that my mother will only say that because she is sure that the kid is mine. My friends say I am an arsehole for punishing the kid for what my ex-wife did. There is a chance the kid is mine, but I can't shake off my doubts, and I refuse to be manipulated into a situation where I might end up responsible for a child who may not be mine. I'm willing to do what's right, but I need certainty first. But it's driving me crazy, with so many people close to me saying I should just take responsibility. My older brother is the only one who is on my side, and he thinks it's because my mother has accepted the kid that others are willing to accept it too, and because of family bonds, which are a major thing here. But I am standing firm on my decision to do a paternity test. Comments. Healthy Air 3755. NTA, DNA test, or nothing. It's crazy to think you just step in and take over a parental role based on your lying ex's claim. Wide Entertainment 1. Especially given the fact that the OP's ex-wife is only reaching out because she needs financial support. Definitely NTA. Continue to stand firm with your decision. OP, don't be played for a fool. Forward Most 1933. NTA. Your mother is blinded by her obsession to have grandkids. You're not being selfish. You're being responsible. Protect yourself and get the test done. Judgment. NTA. Update. 15 days later. So, a lot of stuff has happened, and I am exhausted from dealing with this issue. Despite trying to explain the reason to my mother, I got nowhere. My brother and I managed to talk to our aunt, who was on my side, after she learned what had happened. She was able to convince my mother to talk to me, and we agreed to meet at her house. However, it quickly devolved into arguing, with my mother still insisting the baby is mine and accusing both me and my brother of betraying her for not giving her grandkids. My brother finally snapped and asked her if she was willing to lose 2 sons over this, which made her go quiet. With my aunt's help, we convinced her to talk to Jane about the paternity test. A couple hours after I left, my aunt called me and asked me to arrange the test. According to my aunt, it took some arguing between Mom and Jane to get her to agree to the test, but Jane eventually agreed. So I scheduled the test at a clinic, and the earliest appointment I could get was 3 days from that day. I relayed all of this to my mother and aunt and got the okay from them. The day before the test, my brother and I got a call from our aunt, and she asked us to come to our mother's house as soon as possible. When we got there, we saw our mother sitting on the sofa crying. I asked what happened, and she said Jane was gone. Now I knew Jane was back in the country and was visiting my mother every day, but I did not know it was my mother who facilitated everything. My mother revealed that after Jane contacted her, she flew Jane and the baby out and put her in an apartment near her house. She had been paying rent for her and buying her and the baby things for a month and a half before they told me. I live just an hour from my mother, and I talk to her on the phone 4 or 5 times a week, and she never tells me. After Jane agreed to the test, she asked for money. She told my mother that after the test confirms that I am the father, she needs to buy some essential home stuff as she intends to stay near here. My mother gave her an amount close to $8,000 in US dollars. After she got the money, she did not come and see my mother, so my mother went to the apartment and saw that it was empty. I asked why she ever trusted someone who had lied so much before. She said all her friends are grandmothers, and they are always with their grandkids, and she feels left out when she is with them. Then she gets up and says that all of this is my fault. She came up to me and slapped me, then just went crazy, yelling and crying, and kept hitting me. My aunt and brother managed to get her off me. She kept saying I was a horrible son. I should have just accepted the baby. She then turned to my brother and started yelling at him too, accusing him of instilling his child-free life on me and telling him that he was an embarrassment to her. Then she started off ranting, saying Jane was right to cheat on me. If I had agreed to start a family with Jane back then, this would not have happened. For context, Jane wanted to try for a baby the 2nd year into our marriage, but I had to keep that on hold as I made a major career change, and Jane and I both agreed to wait until I was financially secure. I also want to point out that this was not the reason she gave me for her infidelity. My aunt managed to calm my mother down, somewhat diffuse the situation, and ask us to leave. She said she would try to reason with her. I've tried to call my mother the next day, but she's blocked me on everything. My brother and I agree she needs therapy. but she's not willing to listen or talk to us. As for Jane, I am furious at her and want to find her. I asked my friends to help and told them what happened. They are idiots, but they apologized to me, stepped up, and supported me these past few days. I tried contacting different people through friends and their mutual friends until one of them put me in contact with Claire, who was one of Jane's bridesmaids at our wedding. I told her what happened, and she was shocked at learning about it. According to Claire, Jane is back in the country of her partner, and a couple of days ago, Jane called her and a few others, asking for money as she and her partner are going through some financial issues. Claire says she doesn't know if Jane and her partner are separated. Jane had never told her anything of that sort. She said that when she talked with Jane, she only said they were struggling. I told Claire what Jane did, and that Jane is insisting that her son is mine. Claire said that Jane told her that the kid was her current partner's 2 years ago. Then she said she needs to talk to Jane and her partner to see what's going on. Claire kept saying she truly does not know what's going on, but she is going to ask around. That was 6 days ago, and I tried to call Claire, but she won't answer me now. I am not going to pursue this anymore. I have my answer. So that's the update. Not the conclusion I wanted, but I don't care anymore. My mother still hasn't talked to me or my brother as of right now. I asked my aunt to let my mother know that if she refuses to talk to us or get help, then me and my brother will go permanently without contact as well. My family still says I am in the wrong, as it's my fault for not being married or having kids. I told them to F off and never contact me. My brother and I only tolerated them for my mother anyway. I now firmly believe that the baby is not mine. Comments. GLJVF. Your mom is an idiot. And it's her fault she was scammed. She is also a terrible person for you and your brother. Why are you letting her into your life? Admirable gift 2550. It's obvious that the baby isn't his. She'd have done a DNA test if it were. She probably has one that shows her partner is a dad. I don't know why you'd even consider ever speaking to your mother again. And she deserves to have lost all that money doing all that crap behind your back. She needs an inpatient stay, or you'll end up bailing her out of jail. I can't believe she hit you. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.